Okay. All right, we're on YouTube. Okay. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Three, two, one.
Welcome to another episode of Around the 412. We are part of the Pod Hub Network and all Steelers. I'm Tyler, and with me as always is Smitty. What's going on?
We're back. It's actually been a while if you think about it. We did the episode. We did like multiple episodes that one week because we had Donnie and Noah on. Then did the interview with Minka, and we've been gone since, other than the fantasy show that Donnie and I do. So, yeah, we're finally back. You went on vacation
It
last week.
did.
How was that?
It was good. I stayed safe and 6 feet apart from everybody, wore my mask inside of stores, so it was very good.
Where would you go again?
Ocean City,
Ocean City.
which actually has had a huge spike in cases, I guess, like right before we went there.
Mm.
But it for the most part, at least where we were, Ocean City's set up where there's like First through 27th Street is a boardwalk, and that's like the most popular part of the beach. And we were on like 67th Street, so we were far away from all that. So the beach wasn't really that crowded where we were, and everybody was kind of keeping to themselves. So it was pretty nice. It was nice to relax and kind of get away from all of it.
Well, I was about to ask, like, how are the people treating it there, though?
They're treating it the same as they are here. I mean, everybody like they ask you to wear a mask in stores you go into. Like, I went into grocery stores and bait shops because I was fishing, and even a nail salon because I got a mani pedi. For those
Yeah.
that don't know, um, which was amazing, by the way. I will say that. But yeah, I mean, they were treating it just like everybody else. Everybody, I mean, honestly, better than a lot of people that treat it here. And I don't know if that's because people are on vacation, so they're being more cautious. But um, yeah, it was very easy and smooth compared to like what I would imagine at first.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so Saturday we're gonna have the interview with Garrett Jones, but we wanted to record tonight and do like our normal rundown of stuff. That way Saturday we can just do the interview, because we do have a sports double header, if you will, although they're going on at the same time, Bucks and Pucks, with the Pirates playing in Chicago that night, and then of course the Pens kick off their qualifying round with the Canadians that same night. So. We will tell you first, we're sponsored by Keats Barbershop. Keats Barbershop is an old-fashioned barbershop located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. He's open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. And then every Tuesday, he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, Keats Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Be sure to follow him on his Instagram and like his Facebook page. He's actually coming out with some new shirts. So if you want to order one, follow him on there, and you can place an order that way, or if you want to hit us up and we can make something happen for you there as well. But either way, again, coming out with some new shirts, and they are awesome. Not to say that his old shirts weren't, but there's a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Detail, I think, on these ones. I think there's more to them
Yeah,
overall.
I mean, the last shirt, the first shirt was kind of just like his logo. This one has more stuff to it. It's not
Yeah.
just the logo.
But anyway, okay, so we can kind of jump into it now. So we do this pretty much. The show continues to evolve. We talked about it before. As a sport starts up or is in season, whatever you will, that kind of gets put as like the last thing that we'll talk about. Right now, obviously, baseball has come back and the NHL is going to be coming back. So we're going to talk about the NFL first, being that they haven't started their season yet. So going to the NFL, we've seen a lot of people starting to opt out now. And once again, we've talked about it before. No Nothing against those guys. It's their choice. You got to respect it. They have other priorities right now. Who knows what their circumstances are at home? A lot of these guys have newborn kids. From like the most ones that I've seen opt out, that is the case. Having a newborn kid, or maybe they live with somebody that's elderly. Whatever the case may be, that's their choice. And you can't really hate on it. Anybody that's choosing to opt out of this season. To this point, we haven't seen a Steeler opt out. Mike Tomlin says, based off conversations with the guys, he doesn't anticipate that anybody will, which is good news for us. Again, one way or the other, I wouldn't care if somebody did. I would understand. I thought that there might be a little bit of a possibility there with Cam Hayward, because he is somebody that has asthma, and he's openly talked about that being a possibility. But it seems like all systems are good to go with the Steelers, which is great news. But you look around the league, like the Patriots, they're losing 6 guys, 3 that were starters. Most notably, probably Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung as well, starting right tackle Marcus Cannon. And there's been a lot of talk about that. And it's funny, like the scenarios that people are throwing out, like why these guys are opting out. Like they don't actually like playing for Belichick, and now they can get paid and not play for him. And then other guys saying he's forcing them to opt out to better their chances at Trevor Lawrence. There's so many narratives that are flying around out there and rumors. But I mean, what I think, I just think that it's a coincidence that many guys play on one team and are choosing to do so. I think you're going to see a lot of guys from a lot of teams choosing to opt out. And what I think could be interesting is, what if we see a guy who just recently was diagnosed with, or not diagnosed, but tested positive with COVID, choosing to opt out for that reason? Because I don't think that we've seen that yet. Like, I don't think we've seen anybody that actually like had it choose to opt out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was kind of curious too, if someone gets it during the season, could they opt out like mid-season? Like could they decide, I don't want to play the
No,
rest of the
so
season?
they have 7 days to opt out from when they officially like finalize the agreement with the NFL and the NFLPA.
Okay,
You have 7 days from that
so if
point.
someone gets a mid-season, they still have to play the rest of the season.
Yeah, and you get put on. As far as I know, I mean, that might be why it's not finalized yet. They were talking about them going on like they could be like a non-football injury list, and they wouldn't be getting paid if they died. If they were, why do I keep saying like diagnosed? If they were to come down with COVID-19, they wouldn't be getting paid.
I mean, diagnosis is the right way to say it, I guess.
Yeah. But I like test positive for it, because some guys, they're not even like experiencing like any type of symptoms at all, and they're still testing positive. I mean, not to switch subjects in sports, but we're seeing it, with Keone Keller of the Pirates, who can't join the team because he can't test negative, and he hasn't experienced a symptom to date. So,
well, I mean, to relate it to football, I'm pretty sure Sean Payton, whenever he had it, he said he didn't feel a thing.
Yeah,
but he was positive with it. It's just everybody's body reacts different. But yeah, it is pretty wild to see all these people opting out. But like you said, we cannot blame them. I don't think anybody in the world can blame them. They are free to do what they want, and if that's what they think is the best decision for them, then by all means go for it, because there are things bigger than football. But I also think it's funny that the theories that people are bringing up about the Patriots, like possibly like tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Although I just don't.
Why would they bring in Cam Newton?
That's what I was about to say. I don't think there's any like stock in that, just because why would you bring in Cam Newton? Just start Stidham. But I mean that is funny though, if people like didn't want to play for him just because he is a hard coach to play for. That is a good theory. But I mean, I truly don't think that has anything to do with it. I think they're just looking out for themselves and their family.
Yeah, I agree. Cody Coleman said, what about the idea of Pitt playing at the Riverhounds Stadium this season to reduce the amount of foot traffic at Heinz Field?
Yeah, I think I saw him tweeting about that the other day. I mean, that's not a terrible idea, but I mean, are the Riverhounds playing it? Do they play there in the fall? I don't know when their season is right now. Like if their season has affected it, because like if they're playing there, wouldn't they just have foot traffic with the Riverhounds? But I don't know what I don't even know what the league they play in. It's not MLS. I was gonna say ALS, but that's a disease. So
isn't it like the PSL or something?
Professional Soccer League, or I don't know. Cody,
as you guys can tell listening, we don't talk about the Riverhounds on here. So
yeah, but I mean, it's not a terrible idea.
I hope that they win every single game. All the best to them. It's just not something that I've ever really gotten into, and we don't talk about on here. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea. It'd be I mean, would that logistically make more sense?
They said they might have just wrapped up their season.
Oh,
So
okay.
I mean, they if they wouldn't have any traffic for it, well, I guess it all comes down to whether you're having fans or not. Because if you're having no fans, then I don't see why it wouldn't work. Um, as long as they could
If
have
you're
like
not
a
having fans, they could play two-hand touch in a parking
that's true.
lot.
But like, I mean, not that Pitt has a lot of fans that go to the games as it is, but like, if they're not having fans, I don't see why it would matter because the stand size wouldn't matter because the Riverhounds, like a soccer field, is plenty big enough to have a football field on it because it's bigger than a football field. So I could see them doing that. I think it would be. I think that it could make sense to do that actually.
You'd have to
Um,
think like reduced capacity for fans. That wouldn't really affect pit games because you don't
yeah,
see anybody sitting up top to begin with normally. So now
yeah,
we just have
no,
to have people sit up top.
yeah. I mean, if you want a social distance, like Pitt is the school that does not have to worry about that. Penn State, on the other hand, they have to worry about that a
Yeah.
lot at their games. But Pitt, I mean, we could unless they're playing like Notre Dame or Penn State, like we don't have to worry about that.
Real
But
quick, we don't really talk about college on here, but Notre Dame going to play in the ACC this season. I see a
yeah,
lot of people talking about that should be a permanent thing.
yeah. I mean, I get it, and I get it from a Notre Dame perspective too, just because I'm a BYU fan and they're independent. So I get like why they like being independent because I'm assuming they have a. I mean, they're an ACC associate because all their other sports are in the ACC except for football. It's kind of like for BYU, all their other sports are in the West Coast Conference except for football. Um, but so I can see it from their perspective, but I also understand like if you're in the ACC, like why wouldn't you want to be in the ACC? But I think that's because Notre Dame they like to schedule so many games with other opponents that they like to be independent. So I can understand it from their perspective because if you're in the ACC, I don't think you can guarantee playing USC every year, and like that's a game that like pretty much needs to happen every year,
Yeah.
except for this year, which I guess yeah, Pitt is keeping their Notre Dame game. They also added Clemson and Boston College. So they're doing the ACC is doing a 10+1 schedule. So 10 conference games plus one. So one of their non-conference games will be played, I guess. Which sucks because I heard Heather Lyke on the radio this morning, and they asked her, "What about the possibility of it being West Virginia?" Because Pitt lost their game on the September 19th, and so did West Virginia. But
Mhm.
she said that as much as she would love that for that to happen, it would most likely be one of the contracted games that they already had in place for this season. But I mean, Pitt and West Virginia play in 2 years anyway, so
Yeah.
we'll get it eventually. But I mean,
Yeah.
back to playing at the Riverhounds place. I think it could be a good idea, but at the same time, I don't know how. I don't know what Pitt would have to go like what process Pitt would have to go through with getting that to work because I
Yeah.
don't because a football broadcast is a lot different than a soccer broadcast too.
Yeah.
So if it's on TV, I don't know how that would work with what is called Highmark Stadium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cody Coleman just mentioned that they are in season right now. I knew that they were playing. I just didn't know when it ended because
Yeah.
they were on ESPN2 actually just like a week or so ago. So I knew that they were playing right now. Just wasn't sure when they would be wrapping up, if it would be around the time that, even if you're talking about, they seem to just be wanting to, trim the fat, cut the edges of wherever they can. So even if you're talking about they would have to like play a couple games at Pitt, but for the majority be able to play at Highmark Stadium because then
Mm-hmm.
the season would end, they would still probably like to do that because then it is just the Steelers facility as the home team for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You are
I mean,
reducing the traffic.
I think it makes sense for both teams if they could work it out. Also, before we go back to the Steelers, while we're just talking about college, I think it's kind of neat that it's looking like a real possibility that BYU's first game of the season is going to be Alabama
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
because Alabama lost their first game of the season because it was going to be USC and BYU's is going to be Utah. And I guess the GMs or not the GMs, the ADs have been in talk.
It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, how does that make it? What does that do for, like, how does that make any sense? What are you doing there to contain the virus, if you will, or like,
Well, I don't. Well, that's the thing. I don't like the SEC hasn't shown like that they are going to be only conference, so they're still willing to play other schools. So, I mean, it doesn't show that they're willing to contain it, but I mean, the conference in general hasn't shown that because
Yeah.
they only the big. I mean, well, I guess the ACC kind of because they still have the one non-conference game, but
Yeah.
the only the Big Ten and Pac-12 have gone straight only conference. So I don't know. I mean, I know the SEC is meeting this weekend, I believe, to vote on it. I don't know if they're going to do a 10+1 like the ACC or just conference only, but Stubbs, shut up. He said Alabama might win by 123 points. I mean, you're not wrong, but shut up. Yeah,
I'm curious to see about the Big 12 because that's, the Texas schools, which are Texas has been terrible with this. So
yeah. Texas, California, and Florida have been like the worst states for it. And those are like football hotbeds too.
Yeah. Okay, so getting back to the NFL and the Steelers, we thought it was going to happen yesterday. We'll see in the coming days. Big Ben throwing at Heinz Field for the first time in almost a year. Can't wait to see a video of it. I know the video started circulating yesterday of him at Robert Morris because people were just so hungry to see it. And that video surfaced after the fact, but it was from, that wasn't just yesterday. It was from whenever in the summer. But Chase Claypool has said that there's been like 4 different occasions where he has caught passes from him. It's just good to see the guys back together. Unfortunately, there were 2 guys that did test positive and were placed on the COVID list that the NFL has put in place. Defensive backs Justin Lane and Arian Springs were put on that list. Obviously, wish them a healthy recovery and hope they can get back out there and competing very soon. Whether it's a guy like Arian Springs, who's a long shot to make the roster, and Justin Lane, who you really want to see something from this year with, the aging of Joe Hayden, also having 2 cornerbacks that are upcoming free agents. Justin Lane kind of has to make his mark this season in that cornerback room. We saw what he can do on special teams last year, was pretty good. But this year, hopefully get on the field more and show what he can do as a cornerback. Still very new to the position. He changed from a wide receiver at Michigan State, but I have high hopes for the kid. So once again, hope he can get back out there. But of course, first and foremost, get his health back. But yeah, it's just awesome to have the Steelers back. It's so weird, the fact that they're even having training camp at Heinz Field. Not that I ever care to go again after we went. But I know that that's a huge fan experience for the team as well as the fans, obviously. So it's a shame that they're not able to be at St. Vincent College this training camp. Hopefully they can get back there in 2021. But I mean, yeah, you look at, I guess my biggest takeaway so far, and there really hasn't been I think there hasn't been as much media coverage with the guys too, which, good and bad. I'm happy that we're not getting notes about what vehicles guys are showing up in because I could care less. But that's always been a thing.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It felt odd, because even though I don't care about that, but the fact that training camp started and it just kind of casually started. Because of course, to diehard Steeler fans, it's a big deal that the football's back. But just the vibe that training camp normally brought, or at least the first day of it, where people come, it was just yesterday was just a normal day. If I didn't know the training camp wasn't starting, then I wouldn't have found out.
Yeah. So I mean, my big takeaway, just so far in a very short period of time, is Benny Snell has followed the exact same plan that we've seen Steelers running backs follow. I don't want to say that he was, overweight last year, but he looked slimmed down, yet keeping, the same muscle mass. He looks good. He showed up, there was a picture of him walking in to the facility. And, like I said, it looks like he kind of fit the same mold as we've seen Le'Veon Bell and James Conner do. Even Jalen Samuels, bulked up a little bit too. These guys have all put in work. They've taken the opportunity that this quarantine presented and just were workout nuts. So, I mean, Benny Snell is a guy that we've talked about a lot on here because they added a running back to Anthony McFarland, along with obviously James Conner. Jalen Samuels is still there. Kareth White's still there. Trey Edmonds is there. But Benny Snell, I feel like, his role in the offense will stay, pretty much what it was last year. You hope that James Conner is healthy, but even with that, they're going to want to take the workload off. And now you look at, with this offseason being how weird it is, how up to speed are they going to be able to get Anthony McFarland to even have him have a real role in the offense? That's a guy I think that they want to get, a minimum of 5 touches a game to. But I just feel like now, with the way that this offseason has been and everything like that, and the way that training camp is going to go, Benny Snell's a guy that might actually get a little bit more opportunity than I originally thought.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, with McFarland missing time, like just because of his off season, Fichtner said they missed out on like 900 snaps or potential snaps that they could have had in the practices that they would have had unless this pandemic didn't happen. So I agree with you on that. But I mean, it is kind of like funny how Snell followed Connor's footsteps and Connor followed Bell's footsteps, where it's like they weren't overweight. I mean, they were pretty much the same size they were in college, and in college they weren't overweight. It's just they got to the Steelers, they were the same size, and then their second.
I was just say Bell might have been a little bit overweight in college.
Yeah.
I remember people calling him a fat back.
Yeah, he was 240 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then they come, and then the second year they slimmed down. Like, do you know what his weight is?
Benny
Snell?
Have any
idea? Yeah.
I mean, I can see what he's listed as, but I don't know if that'd be true to.
Well, I didn't know if there would be a difference from this year to last year of like what his weight was listed as, because I know,
I couldn't tell you what it
was. Because like Le'Veon, he dropped from like 240 to 220 or 223 or whatever.
So he's listed at 5'10", 224.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense for his, because he's a stocky dude. But even with him losing the weight, I think he will still be that power back, like you said. His role won't change unless James Conner gets hurt. I'm just praying that he does not get hurt, because healthy James Conner can do a lot of good things, but when he's not in the field, it's kind of like why we don't think he'll get a contract. He just can't stay on the field. So hopefully that.
So 5'10", 224 is what he came in at the combine. So really? Yeah.
I mean, maybe he just lost fat. I mean, not that he was a fat guy, but everybody has fat on them. Maybe he just lost fat and gained it back in muscle. That's why he looks more lean.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he was a thick running back. So I don't know, but I am excited with him. And will Justin Lane be like the first corner in for like as like a sub?
I think on the outside.
That's what I mean. So like it would be like Hayden and Nelson on the outside, and then he would be like the first guy up.
Well, I don't know because Cam Sutton can play there too. So I guess it would depend.
I forgot he existed.
Yeah.
But
the way they use Cam Sutton, it's not.
Do they use him in the slot too?
Yeah. Yeah, he plays almost like a third safety type for the most part. Which they might just want him to kind of stay in that role, because when against the Chargers last year, that's why Artie Burns started that game on the outside. Mm-hmm. So I think that I hope it doesn't happen, but say Hayden or Nelson does miss time, it was Hayden or Nelson that missed that game against the Chargers, it would be Justin Lane, I think, that would start opposite, similarly to how we saw Artie Burns last year.
Yeah, but I mean, I hope he gets playing time, because I agree with you.
I mean, he needs to. They got to see what they have.
Yeah, but he did well on special teams, but I liked him at Michigan State, and I liked his tape at Michigan State a lot. It's kind of like another guy that I'm hoping this year can get some more reps is at safety. Why am I blanking on his name? Marcus Allen. Yeah, I'm hoping that he can like get a look at safety, because I think that's another guy you have to see what you're at, like with him, because this is going to be his third year on the team, and last year the past 2 years he's barely even dressed for games.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing, they brought in another safety today, Curtis Riley, who was with the Raiders last year. Mm-hmm. Which looking at him, what I can tell in a very short period of time of looking at him, poor tackler, gets beat up in man coverage, so he can take the ball away. I think he has 4 or 5 career takeaways in just like 18 starts or something like that, which is a pretty good number. But yeah, so he's gonna. Obviously you have Minkah and Terrell, and you just drafted Antoine Brooks, so he's making the roster. Typically, you would keep 4 safeties, so you have between Marcus Allen, Jordan Dangerfield, and then this guy. I think you're fighting for one spot there, And I think what would go against Marcus Allen is I believe he can be in the practice squad again this year. So you can essentially keep two of those guys by making Marcus Allen the guy that you keep on the practice squad. And I think Jordan Dangerfield would probably have the advantage just because of what he does on special teams as well. If you're a safety that can't tackle, you're not going to play on special teams. So this guy's, I think, out as far as that goes. I don't really see a path for this guy to make the roster. It was kind of a curious signing for me, but it's especially like right before you have to trim your roster to 80 guys anyway, and we're already over 80. So you wonder what the moves are coming. They even added another running back in Wendell Smallwood.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Which is another interesting move. But it's going to be interesting to see what these moves are in the next couple days. I agree on Marcus Allen, though. I mean, we both liked him coming out. It was a very wide range of where he could go in the draft and ends up going all the way in the 5th round, which, at the time seemed like we might actually have something here in the 5th round. Obviously, we knew that there were limitations in coverage. Not sure that he would really be, a ball hawk. But he'd come down in the box, be a box safety, be kind of a thumper, almost like, essentially what you have at Edmonds as his best, is down in the box. I think that there probably would be a role for Marcus Allen on another team. I'm just not so sure I see it here. So I think best case scenario, he's on the roster again, just on the practice squad. I really don't see him being a guy that makes the 53. I just, especially like with everything that's, once again, going back to the way this offseason has been and everything, Jordan Dangerfield has been there and done that this entire time, was on the 53 last year. So I would think that he's a guy that has, the clear path to the roster because of that. There's really not much that's changed. He's going to be in the exact same defense. Marcus Allen, once again, he was learning everything and stuff last year, but he wasn't getting the reps on game days. So I feel like, to me, Marcus Allen's best shot is to make the practice squad again this year and then, go out there, compete. I don't want to say hope for an injury, but if something happens, then he's on the 53. And then, maybe the following year would be when he gets up. But again, his contract coming up. So.
Yeah. I mean, he'll only have 1 year after this one. Maybe I'm just being partial because he was like my guy in the draft. Like that was who I liked at the safety position. And which is ironic because he's a Penn State guy, and everybody knows how I feel about Penn State. But yeah, I agree with you. He probably doesn't make the team. I mean, he was on the practice squad last year, right? That was basically his role. So I don't even know if he dressed for any games last year. Mainly, he was just on the sideline.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
no, he didn't. And I remember. I feel like I was talking with somebody about that. He wasn't. Oh, Noah, our All Steelers editor. We were talking about it. They still like him though. They watch him in practice and they see what's there. They know what his strengths are, but he's an underwhelming guy. I mean, he does what he does. You can't ask him to do anything more. But he's not going to, he's a short tackler. He's not going to do anything less. He rarely makes mistakes. It's just, he has very limited capability, but there's a role for it. I feel like in the NFL, again, just don't know if it's here because of what we currently have on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, not that you hope for an injury, but say Terrell Edmonds gets an injury, would you think that they would automatically put Jordan Dangerfield out there, or would they test out Marcus Allen just because they are pretty much the same style of player?
I would honestly, I think it'd be Dangerfield, but I will say there was hesitation there, as you could tell. The only reason that I'm somewhat hesitant is because you could keep Dangerfield in his exact same role and know that he's very good at it, special teams and stuff like that. If you put Marcus Allen in that role, how's he gonna do? Like, you at least know what Jordan Dangerfield is in that role, as opposed to giving yourself now 2 question marks instead of 1. You just have 1. Obviously now it's in a starting role.
Yeah.
You would really be relying on Minkah to be covering a lot of ground there. And once again, Cam Sutton kind of plays like a safety anyway, as a third safety. I don't know. Antoine Brooks, though, as well. That's another guy. Maybe he would be that guy.
Yeah. Part of me keeps forgetting that we drafted him. And it's probably because he was like the most underwhelming. Well, he was, to me, he was like the most underwhelming pick in the draft, which is probably why I keep forgetting that we have him.
I just feel like the player that he is, and I mean, I hope that he does more than what I expect. But once again, I just feel like we kind of know what he is already, and we already have, one or two of him on the roster. So how
Mhm.
different is he?
Yeah, you're right.
Around the league, looking around, we talked about guys opting out and such. Vic Beasley just straight up has not reported to the Titans, and there apparently wasn't any communication before today. Finally had a communication with, I don't know if it was the GM or the owner, but said he would be back shortly.
I
And
saw that the
said
GM said that.
yeah, his absence have been unexcused. So they expected him to be there, and he just straight up wasn't there. He didn't go and get tested, or he hasn't been a part of the Titans program to this point. He just signed there this offseason. So that's kind of odd. And then unexpectedly, or I should say not unexpectedly, very unsurprising, that Yannick Ngakoue has not reported to the Jaguars. Still seeking a trade.
I wouldn't want to report to them either, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I would is to hang out with Gardner Minshew. But beyond that, there's really no football reasons to be there.
Yeah. So for the Beasley situation, that just seems weird to me. Like, why wouldn't you at least, even if you didn't want to show up at first, why wouldn't you at least let someone know on the team? It's not like you don't have to tell like everyone. At least let the GM or the coach know. Like, that just seems like an odd situation why he would just like be dead silent about the whole thing, not communicate with anybody until today. And then with Yannick, I mean, he's the only guy that doesn't have a contract.
He might be.
I'm
trying to think if there's anybody else that hasn't signed there.
I hold on.
Tag.
Pretty sure. Let's see.
Because I know there's, like Bud and Shaq Barrett are both trying to get paid more on the tag.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if there's anybody else that hasn't signed it.
Okay, it looks like he's the only one that hasn't signed his.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, that's not surprising though. This has been going on for a long time. I don't get what the Jaguars are doing here. I mean, trade him. You're gonna get something decent for him, and otherwise he doesn't want to be there. You really have. I don't even know who has leverage in this situation.
I don't know either. But yeah, this is CBS Sports. He's the only tagged player to not sign his tender. So, yeah, I don't see why the Jaguars would. It's kind of like not exactly the same because he wasn't tagged, but like Jamal Adams, it's like at this point, like they.
Oh yeah, he's got on Twitter fights with the owner, like.
Yeah, so I mean, it made sense to trade him, and I don't see why it wouldn't make sense to trade this guy, especially when you want to suck this year. Like, you want to be bad. And any way to prevent that from happening, you probably want off your team.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if he doesn't want to play for you, which he clearly does not. So, instead of him not playing on the tag and then him walking, at least get something for him.
You know what? Big brain play by the Jaguars. They know that he's going to tank. Like, he's just going to sabotage the games for them. So they're going to be even worse with him.
Oh. That's if he plays. If he doesn't sign his tender, he's not going to. Yeah. He can just pull Lev Bell.
In a different scenario, Dalvin Cook is at Vikings camp after originally saying he wouldn't be there without I don't know the word
extension,
but yeah, he wanted an extension, but he said like a fair deal, what he thought was a fair deal. But you want to talk about not having leverage. He would actually be fined more by not being there than he's going to make this year. So he's on his rookie deal, wasn't a first round pick. So yeah, his fines would have ended up being over what he's going to make. So, we've seen it with running backs before. I have trouble faulting him just because, for running backs, you got to get paid as soon as you can and make as much money as you can quick because it doesn't last long. So I have trouble, faulting him for that. But we've seen this story too many times to know how it's going to go. We know how it's going to go. This book's been written already, and he's going to show up. They're probably going to run his tires off. If something happens, they got a really good backup in Alexander Madison, and Dalvin Cook probably won't be a Viking next year. Some team is going to pay him. It might not be exactly what he wants, but he'll get 12 million or so probably a year. And that team is gonna end up regretting it probably about 2 or 3 years into it. And it's the same movie that we've all seen over and over again. And I really like Dalvin Cook, but do I like Dalvin Cook 4 years from now after the tires are going to get ran off him this year? Probably not.
Yeah, and I agree with you. He doesn't really have any leverage, and I don't think really any running back has leverage this year. Just looking at the free agent class for next year, I mean,
Yeah.
it's stacked. So I don't. It's not like you can say, well, I'm the only running back on the market that's at my level, so you have to pay me, or else I'm going to leave. Because, I mean, you got Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, Kareem Hunt. Like, that's like
So to
10
me,
guys right there.
You have Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Aaron Jones as like the top three, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that there's, you have the second tier after that, which, I mean, I don't remember all the names that you said.
I would put like Marlon Mack in that tier.
Well, Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette out of this group actually led everyone in scrimmage yards last year.
Okay.
But you got Joe Mixon.
Oh, yeah.
Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley. Which Todd Gurley's not what he used to be, but
we'll see how he does this year in Atlanta.
I think someone would still sign him though.
Probably.
I mean,
yeah, I think
the
that
name
he's a
alone.
guy. He went to another situation though where he's probably going to who's the second back on that roster? Ito Smith, in Atlanta. I don't see who else is going to get the ball handed to him. Luckily, that's a pass first offense. But I think if a team is going to sign him, you're going to want it to be a team that already has a pretty solid running back, similar to how Denver's doing it now, Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. You probably want Gurley to be like your 1A or 1B, not your workhorse back, because that's not going to be possible at this point in his career with the knee issue that he has. So, yeah, I mean, that is a loaded free agent running back class, and that's why we talked about before. It kind of increases the possibility that we see James Conner back in a Steelers uniform for less money than we would have thought of, because we know the Steelers love him. We know he loves Pittsburgh, obviously. It's just going to be a matter of, can the dollars make sense? And as these teams start signing running backs and James Conner's still sitting there, maybe he just takes a 1-year deal and tries to get back into a weaker free agency class.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, obviously I've never met James Conner, but I feel like if there's someone on the Steelers that would take less money to still play on the Steelers, it's James Conner. And I'm just going based off of him growing up a Steeler fan. He grew up in the Whippeal. Erie McDowell's not in the Whippeal anymore, but it was when he played. And he went to Pitt, got drafted by the Steelers. I mean, it's basically like a storybook. It's like a Disney movie. And I feel like with this class especially, I think he will stay on a cheap deal. And he's actually listed on this. On other notables at the bottom of the graphic, it says him, Matt Breida, Tariq Cohen, Chris Carson.
Chris Carson, he's very good, and no one talks about him.
Yeah. So I think that's a very real possibility that he could stay for less money. If you're gonna put a gun to my head, is it more likely that we keep Juju or James Conner? I'm saying James Conner.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but I mean it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, neither one of them are getting Joey Bosa money. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but there's something of note. Joey Bosa signs a 5-year, $135 million deal. The only way that it impacts the Steelers is it's another edge guy. So you start looking at TJ's contract coming up. Once again, though, TJ's a little bit different than Joey Bosa. TJ drops into coverage a little bit more. But in that aspect, for whatever reason, being a more versatile player as an outside linebacker as opposed to a defensive ends get paid more. I
never understand that.
Yeah.
If someone could do more like TJ, why wouldn't he get paid more? That makes no sense in my head. But you see it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for example, just, is it as far as it pertains to the franchise tag? Defensive ends, you make $2 million more. So
yeah, I mean, I don't get it. Maybe it's because you're rushing the running back or the quarterback every play, but like you said, TJ can drop into coverage. TJ's had interceptions, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I mean, it's hard to put a number. Once again, the good news is we're not talking about like an outside the organization free agent. You do typically see a little bit of a hometown discount with guys that are currently here. But what does market value become for TJ? I mean, you're talking
Well, I was about to
in
ask you.
excess of 25, probably getting
Well-
close to 30.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think it's going to be at least 25 million? His contract.
I think if I were putting a number on it as it stands right now, I would say probably 27 million per.
And I'm assuming it'd be like 5 or 6 years.
5 years seems to be, the number that is like the edge rushers for whatever reason have been signing for. It's 5 years. So
yeah, I mean, would he be the? Well, no. Okay, besides Ben, would he be the highest paid Steeler ever after that? I would believe so.
I think, yeah.
I think Ben was the first Steeler to make 20 million a season. So he would have to be, I think.
Yeah.
But either way, he's getting paid. And then the year after that, Minka's getting paid.
I mean, even AB's last deal, he was making 17 per, I think. So
yeah.
And again, that's a receiver. They don't typically get into that quarterback rusher money.
Mm-mm. I want to look at. I'm just curious. I'm looking at the top safety contracts.
Again, that's not, those guys don't touch 20 million. So
yeah. So the highest right now is Eddie Jackson, 14.6 per year.
Yeah, I was gonna say 14. Okay. And you imagine Jamal's extension that he's going to sign. That's the last thing that I was wanting to talk about. Oh no, that's the last thing. Because real quickly, shout out to Alex Smith. Awesome, the progress that he's made right now on the pup list for the Redskins. But the fact that he was even, in the facility part of the Redskins right now and hasn't retired is just awesome. But anyways, going back,
I believe you mean
Jamal
the
Adams.
Washington football team.
True. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to offend anybody. I'm not going to be. That's going to be so tough. That
It's just
transition.
well, yeah. And I don't think a lot of people can you can't get mad at people for just saying the Redskins because it's like ingrained in our brain. So
Yeah.
it'd just be like switching a team for if say the Steelers went to the. I don't even know. I can't even think of a freaking name. Say they switched their name. It would be like trying to not call them the Steelers. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, and even it's not like the Redskins or the Washington football team isn't a historic franchise. It's not like it's not like the Steelers or Cowboys, but they have some history to them.
Yeah.
They've been around for a while, so it is tougher than normal. I can't being a broadcaster this year. I'm wondering if any of them are going to mess up. I
would just be. I mean,
little
just say Washington. Just call them by that.
Yeah. But so
anyways,
so four
QB, Alex Smith.
Yeah, so 4 safeties make 14 million or more, and it's Landon Collins, Tyrann Mathieu, Kevin Byard, and Eddie Jackson.
And yeah, okay. So Jamal Adams traded to Seattle, which before we talked about the extension of that, let's just talk about the trade. So he goes along with a 4th-round pick to Seattle for Bradley McDougald, 2 firsts and a 3rd. Which Bradley McDougald, he's a starting safety caliber. He's going to start for the Jets, and he's a fine player. Average to above average. So that in itself, you're getting a starting player back. You're getting 2 firsts and then a 3rd for Jamal Adams, who you got to give a new contract to now if you're Seattle, and a 4th-round pick. So, whatever the difference is between, say McDougald, if you were trading him, probably doesn't go for much more than a 4th, honestly, in the trade market. So if you want to say those 2 cancel out, now you're talking about Jamal Adams for 2 firsts and a 3rd.
Yeah, I can't see how anyone could look at this trade and say the Jets did not win this trade far and away. Because even Jamal Adams is a good player, but I mean he's going to make minimum $12 million a year on his new contract.
I think he's going to be. I mean, he's going to reset the market for safeties. I think so. You're talking,
really? Yeah. I mean, I was just looking at the safety contracts. I'm like, there's no way he's going to be below 12 million. I mean,
no, I think he'll go. I think he'll get probably 16 to 17. Honestly.
Really? Yeah. I mean
he has all the leverage in the world. Look at what Seattle traded for him. They're incredibly invested in him. I think that he's a great player and he's a perfect fit for that defense. That's not the problem. The problem is how was that what they had to pay? If you're the Jets, you got to be beaming right now, because even if there wasn't issues with Jamal Adams, I would take that trade in a heartbeat, regardless of if he was a model citizen there and doing and saying all the right things. After the way that he spoke out about Adam Gase, as well as who's the GM there? I can't think of what his name is. Anyway, after that, the Jets should have had no leverage. Joe Douglas. The Jets should have had no leverage and were just taking the best offer for him. A bunch of teams should have been coming in trying to make trade offers for him. Maybe they were. But for Seattle to give this up with the Jets having, I just can't believe the Jets were able to pull this off, to be honest.
Yeah.
And again, they're probably not going to be that great of first-round picks. They'll probably be towards the back end, but still.
It's a first-round pick. I mean, but I looked up Seahawks cap space right now, 7.2 million or 17.2. So that's pretty much all going to him.
Yeah, and again, I mean, things are going to get reworked, I'm sure. And as our friend Donnie would say, cap space is just a myth anyway. I mean, look at what the Chiefs somehow did. And with the Chargers giving Joey Bosa that money, they didn't have a ton of cap space, and that's ridiculous. But, yeah, it's just, to me, Seattle definitely didn't win this trade. I think at best it's a wash. But all I'll say is if I'm a Jets fan, I'm pretty pleased with what the front office was able to pull off, all things considered, because Jamal Adams clearly, whether he doesn't seem to have anything against the fan base or the team. It was more so a thing with, the coach and potentially the management of the team. But either way, this was a guy that was speaking out against the organization, and you were still able to get the haul that you did for him. And I think that's, a win in my book. So regardless of what these two first round picks turn out to be, we won't know for a while. But to get that draft capital for a guy that wasn't going to be there much longer anyways, I don't know how it's not a win for the Jets.
And if you look at it from a Steelers fan perspective, the Steelers fleeced Miami for Minkah. I mean, just looking at the return, we gave up like nothing comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, there are two different types of safeties. Obviously, Jamal plays, more in the box, is actually, asked to rush the passer a little bit, almost kind of like a hybrid linebacker type. And Minkah goes and creates turnovers, goes and gets the ball, plays more in coverage. But Jamal Adams, he has 2 career interceptions. He's a safety that's 2 career interceptions. And for anybody that wants to say, he plays the way that he does, Troy Polamalu played that same type of style and still was able to get the interception numbers that he had. And one of those interceptions that Jamal Adams has came against Jarrett Stidham in a blowout, where New England was just killing them. And they threw Jarrett Stidham in there. He threw a pick 6, and Bill Belichick got so mad he put Tom Brady right back in.
That's actually really funny.
I mean, yeah, and once again, Jamal Adams is a great player, and I think that Seattle's a perfect scheme for him to play in. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to say that like the Jets, fleeced the Seahawks or anything like that, because if you give up a player like that, it's still a fine trade. But for the Jets, I think it's an absolute win, and for the Seahawks, it's more of, well, this guy better, pay off.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think the Seahawks got fleeced. I just think if you're comparing the trades, the Minkah trade looks so much better because of it.
Okay. So if you have nothing else to talk about in the NFL,
not really NFL, but only just last thing because it's football related. I just wanted to touch back. So the SEC did say they're only doing a 10-game conference schedule. That was announced today, which is why I didn't know.
Yeah. I did see that when I was at work.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Thank you, Cody, for pointing that out to me. But yeah, I didn't. So the BYU Alabama game, everything that we talked about beforehand, just ignore that. Irrelevant now.
Start at this point right now and listen back. Okay, so switching to the NHL and the bubble, which I wanted to bring up before we go any further. The NBA starting up tonight, and the NHL coming back on Saturday. Those are the two sports that I just feel like, I know that we have baseball right now and NFL is hoping to play. NHL and NBA, they're going to happen. And I feel like they're going to be able to complete their seasons because they're in these bubbles. And I have, no issue with the fact that guys wouldn't have done it wouldn't do it in baseball and probably wouldn't do it in the NFL in a bubble because they wouldn't want to be away from their families. But truthfully, it's the best shot that we actually have of being able to complete these seasons, which is why I would say, we've seen it, 0 positive tests now after 2 straight periods of testing for the NBA and also in the NHL. Like the bubble works and It is working. So they're going to be able to complete their seasons with the MLB with what's going on. And we're going to talk about that. So I don't want to, jump around with topics here, but the NHL, the bubble was a great idea. And, the fact that the players were able to are agreeing to this and doing this and everything like that, they want to play. It shows their commitment to doing so. It showed the NHL's commitment to getting back on the ice, and they're going about it the right way. And we've seen a little bit of what, the bubble looks like, with Gino in the Pens having his birthday dinner last night on the rooftop and everything like that. But yeah, I think the bubble is definitely the way to go, and I'm happy that we're getting hockey back. John Chayka will not be part of the NHL's return. It looks like he just straight up quit on the Coyotes. There's a little bit of, back and forth, like the statements from both were just very there was hatred behind the words, it seemed like.
Yeah, I wonder where the relationship went bad, because it's not often that you see a GM quit.
And it seemed like things were going the right way, honestly. Like the Kessel trade, bringing in Taylor Hall, there was reason to be excited about hockey in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. That team was on the rise. I mean, I think we mentioned that they could compete for possibly like a wild card spot soon, but it's very odd to see that happen, especially, I mean, he was the youngest GM ever. He was hired when he was 26, 27.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really want to know what his thought process was, or what's behind the story, because obviously there's something that us, the people on the outside, are missing. So I want that to be revealed, because it just doesn't really make sense when you look at it. Where in the relationship did it go bad?
Yeah, and shout out to former Penguins Steve Sullivan taking over as the GM, at least on an interim basis for right now. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Taylor Hall. There's a lot of talk that he might just take, a 1-year deal back there to try to rebound his value. Me personally, they just aren't an offensively driven team. They are a team that, once again, is on the rise, can compete in games. Their style of hockey doesn't really fit what Taylor Hall wants to do. So if I'm him, I'm probably taking a 1-year deal elsewhere to try to rebound my value. Come to Pittsburgh. I don't know, whatever you want to do, but I'm just throwing it out there. But we
don't have enough cap issues as it is.
We can make it work, but
cap doesn't exist.
Again, it's kind of seems like it's out of nowhere. I think Elliot Friedman was the first guy on this to be reporting that there was something there, and John Chayka would probably be leaving the organization, and then bam, it happens. And there's still was he terminated? Did he quit? They're saying he quit. Was it mutual?
They're in the postseason this year too. So yeah. What's with the timing?
Mm-hmm.
The season hasn't ended.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Who are they playing? Nashville?
I'm not sure. Actually, I just know they're in it. Maybe it's Nashville. I haven't paid attention to the Western Conference lineups at all. I'll be honest. I've only been focused on Eastern Conference.
Yeah, they're playing Nashville. I just looked at it. They start out at 2 p.m. on Sunday. If you were a fan of, I think it's that series, it would be so frustrating because their games are all at 2:30, and they're even during the week.
Mm-hmm.
You're working, you're just missing these games.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy we're on a premium team. That's why I'm happy we get 8:00 starts.
Yeah. Okay. So we played the exhibition game against the Flyers. They lost the game, but that part of it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't say that there were too many takeaways from that game. Obviously, the Malkin turnover that led to the goal that put the Flyers up 2-1 was the big play everybody was talking about from that game.
Yeah, I saw Spit and Chicklets said they gave him that Malkin gave Konechny a birthday cake. Like he just
And we've seen Malkin make plays like that before and everything like that. I'm sure he got an earful about it, and
probably.
I don't see him making that mistake in a game that counts.
Well, that's
I
why
think
I was wondering if like he knows the game doesn't count. Because I mean, as a player, obviously these guys have a higher competitive level than we do. I mean, and you always hear compete level in hockey, which I think is like some sort of like made up BS lingo. But I mean, I guess it is real to a certain extent. But these players know this game means nothing. So I feel like as a player, I'd be focusing on like making sure I'm not getting hurt. I'm not really like trying to do anything that stupid where I could put myself in a position where I could either injure myself or something bad that happens to the team. So maybe that was going through Malkin's head. Like he just didn't really care about this game. But I mean, I agree. I don't think he would let something like that happen in a game that matters, especially after that happening in that game. Because you're right. I'm sure Sullivan let him hear it. Because Sullivan is not afraid to yell at his superstars.
Yeah. If he was, Phil Kessel might still be here. Who knows?
Well, if he was, then they might as well have Mike Johnson still as a coach, because that's I mean, he wouldn't yell at anybody.
Yeah. So I mean, most important things from that game: 1A, 1B, tied. Get out of there healthy, number one, and kind of also right there with that of importance, at least to the guys playing, is just finally playing a game and getting that type of conditioning of a game under your belt. For me,
I forgot to do that.
Yeah, I think that those were really the two important things. The result of the game wasn't going to matter.
I was watching the game with Anthony and Laura, and I was sitting there, and in overtime, I'm like, this is probably the first NHL overtime that I've never had like any amount of like nervousness or anxiety. Like I was just sitting there completely fine, and like the Flyers scored, and I'm like, meh. Like
I was like, all right, the Pirate game starts in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, essentially, we just kept it on the same channel, and the Pirate game started. I had no care in the world about that game whatsoever. It was a weird feeling, especially during a Flyer game.
But I mean, overall, it's kind of going back to the regular season. The power play needs to pick it up. If there was one type of game takeaway that you're looking for, that's probably it. Is the power play looking pretty poor as it did for a lot of the regular season. So that's something that I'm sure they're going to be working on. They've tinkered with a lot of different guys on there. I know that they were saying during the broadcast, Brian Rust wasn't even part of it, and he led the team in power play goals, but he hadn't been part of either of the units in practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the result of having Jake Gensel back in the lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see what five guys they throw out there, especially because we've seen what happens when the Pens choose to just have one defenseman on the ice for those, which you're putting your best five offensive guys out there if you do go with the four forwards and Letang. But we've seen it go sour fast when they decided to do that. And especially with like the emergence of John Marino, I think that's a guy that you probably throw out there and have two guys on the blue line that way. And then go, Sid, Gino, and I would guess Gensel, have Sid kind of play in front of the net. I don't know, but you don't want him getting hurt that way either. And we've seen the bumps and bruises that Horny's taken in front of the net. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I'm just happy that we're even having this conversation about it, because once again, the NHL being smart about it, getting the guys to commit to playing in a bubble, and it's worked.
Yeah, I agree. Power play sucks. But I mean, that's nothing new. We've said that the past like couple of years. It's just been so underwhelming for the talent that the Penguins have. You'd think their power play would be so good.
Now,
like a couple of years ago, they led the league in percentage, and now this year they were like terrible.
I think to a degree, it's because of how much talent there is. They like, you can't, with other teams that don't have as much talent, they got to be like so simple about how they do things. With these guys, they rely on talent too much, and they're always trying to make that extra pass. And, it doesn't matter how they look. When they go in the back of the net, they all count the same. But it just seems like the Penguins they try to do too much at times.
Do you think part of it could be like, since there is so much talent, they are trying to like spread out the wealth, like not like trying to get goals for other people, but they're purposely looking at other people because they know that talent's there? Like if Sid has the puck and he passes it to Malkin, or if Malkin has a puck, he passes it to Letang or Sid, or vice versa, or any combination. Do you think that could have anything to do with it? That they're willing to take that extra pass and try to get extra look just because they know the talent's there?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's kind of what I'm saying is I just feel like to a degree they might have too much talent because like I said, most teams relying on the process that they have in place because things have to be simple for it to work. Where the Penguins, they can fall back and just rely on talent a lot. So, they feel like, oh, I can throw this pass between my legs this direction, and I know somebody's going to be there, and I know I can make this pass.
Yeah, and I know we probably brought it up a few times beforehand in the past year, but like having Kessel on the power play, I feel like Kessel pissed off a lot of people when it came to the power play because they felt like he didn't shoot enough from that right wall. But at the same time, when it came to passing on the power play, he kind of quarterbacked it. Like he was really good at setting up power plays. So I mean, they are missing that part of the aspect.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's a good conversation to be having, and there's so many options for the way that they can go with the power plays. That's why, I mean, I just feel like whatever Sullivan does, he's going to be put in question if it doesn't work. But with the amount of possibilities we have, the possibilities are essentially endless, especially when it comes to the forwards they're going to use. Once again, it's a good and bad thing. It's a double-edged sword because you're leaving yourself open to questions if it doesn't work out. Again, if you're taking Rust out of there, who led the team in power play goals, how's that going to look if it doesn't work out?
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense. So he wasn't on the second power play either.
No.
Well, I don't understand that at all.
Zucker, McCann, and
Sherry.
Maybe.
Yeah, why wouldn't you have Rust on either one?
Or Marlowe. Maybe it was Hornquist.
Maybe. I still I question that decision making, but I'm just excited to have hockey back on Saturday. And I was talking about this with Anthony, and we said because obviously there's the possibility if the Penguins lose in the first round, they could get the first overall pick. Now, say that happens, then obviously we're happy, but the Zucker trade just got a lot better because it'd be like we didn't even give up the first round pick for him. Because Minnesota would still have our technical first round pick, but we would get a first round pick anyway. So it's like we didn't even trade a first round pick if that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we upgraded our pick. Which brings me to this hypothetical. And this is a dumb hypothetical because I'm controlling one side and I'm not controlling the other. But here's my hypothetical. So the Penguins will move on past the first round, but you do not know how far they're going to go. Or you lose in the first round, but you're going to get the first overall pick. Which one are you choosing? Because I feel like it's an easy decision. I'm picking the first overall pick.
Yeah, if you can guarantee me the first round pick, anything short of the cup, even if it meant going to the cup and losing, I would rather have the first overall pick.
That's why I was saying this year is different.
I said first round the first time, first overall. Yeah.
This year is different than any other year, where it is better to lose in the first round than it is any other round. Just because you have that chance, 12.5% chance.
Yeah, so, if you go to the second round and then lose.
Yeah, like I will be more mad about them losing in the second round than I will be in the first round, because I'll be the least mad if they lose in the first round than any other round. Really, I mean, even if they went to the cup and lost, I would be less mad if they lost in the first round, just because you had that chance.
Yeah,
it's a weird year. Like it's a year that you're gonna be. It's the only year that you'll be not as mad as them losing if they lose in the first round.
Yeah.
Until they have the draft and we don't get the first overall pick, then we can be mad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when we can be mad about it. How do you feel about the Seattle Kraken?
The name, jersey, or
Everything.
anything? So, I don't mind their colors. I was curious.
I think that's been more controversial than the name, to be honest.
Yeah, I honestly do not mind their colors. Uh, now the name I'm also fine with. I That was one of the names that I thought it was going to be, especially towards the end. Like the days beforehand, I was saying no competitive person would ever do that. You wouldn't ever do that. What do you mean I wouldn't ever? I don't know what you're talking about, Stubbs. But yeah, I'm fine with the colors. I'm fine with the name because the night before, um, the name was announced. I was thinking Kraken or sockeye, like sockeye trout or sockeye salmon. Um, and so especially after they teased that video of the fishing boat the day before,
Mm-hmm.
like I figured it had to be one of the two. But I will say their logo is kind of underwhelming. That S. Um, I get it. It just kind of looks like an EASHL jersey. But that concept, I saw a concept logo that had the anchor that they released?
Yeah.
That had the Seattle
Yeah,
needle.
I saw what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one with the S around that. I think that would be a great like normal logo. But overall, I mean, I'm fine with what they did.
I think that using that, a second shade of blue as opposed to a white is interesting. They said, that's like the unique thing for them is that's what they want to do because no one else does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing is I don't hate anything. I can't say that I love any part about it. I don't love the name Kraken. There were definitely better. Like I feel like there were better names, but I feel like there were definitely worse names. And as far as the color scheme goes, it's they were going for something that nobody else has, and I think that they definitely did a good job of doing that. Again, if you asked me to come up with a better color combination, I don't think that I could. But looking at it, I could definitely say that they could have done worse.
Yeah. I mean, just because I'm not blowing picking the colors in the name, I think it's fine. Like, if I had my pick of the name, I probably would have gone with like Seattle Storm or like pay homage to the NBA team, Seattle like Supersonics or Sonics.
Yeah.
Or is there a WNBA team named the Sonics as well?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Honestly, I have no idea. But yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm just excited there's a new NHL team. And to go back to Stubbs, you said you would lose if you knew you'd get the first round pick, right? Yes, I would. So I would do that. So don't say I wouldn't do that. If I knew they were going to get Alexis Lafreniere, I would lose 1,000 times over. Every single time I'd lose. So don't come at me with that.
I mean, for them, obviously, they're not thinking like that. But as fans, we can sit back and, like you said, it's not a guarantee. So that's why I still want them to win.
Oh yeah, obviously, I'm picking them to win. But if I knew they got them, yeah, I'm picking to lose.
Yeah, it's why can't it just be a guarantee? If we lose, we get them.
No, that'd be so much easier.
It'd be a win-win.
How is that stupid, Stubbs? That's what I don't get. How you're picking a first overall pick. That's what I like. How is that?
Oh
stupid?
Yeah, so he said first round in the comments. It's the first overall pick.
Yeah, not first round, first overall. Like you're picking like Alexis Lafreniere if you get that pick.
Yeah, well, that name probably doesn't mean much to him, but yeah, the first overall pick is what you have a 12.5% chance if you lose in the qualifiers to Montreal. But the way that we were presenting it is if we knew that we were getting him, if we lost, would we do it?
Yeah, which is why like a million times yes. And it's not stupid.
Yeah, I mean, even with the way you presented it, though, you were saying. So wait, would you do that even if and just completely get rid of the chance to possibly win the cup, or only if you knew that we weren't going to win?
No, like if I knew we'd get past the first round, but I didn't know when we'd lose, okay. I'd pick the first overall pick because you have your odds are greater that you're going to lose sooner than the cup. I mean, even if you lost in the cup, like if I lost in the cup, what does that do me any good? I don't care. I'd rather have the first
You
overall pick.
you get an Eastern Conference banner.
Okay. So what? I become Nashville with the West? Like I want that.
Okay, so last thing to talk about would be baseball. Baseball's back. The Pirates are back. Trust the Bucking process. The Pirates, I mean, they're going to lose games. That 24-hour period.
I'm not saying through the series, Stubbs. I'm saying if they lost, I'd be okay with it.
The 24-hour period on Monday and Tuesday, I believe it was. Yeah. We're just like the way that they lost the game Monday and then the way they won the game Tuesday, we're just polar opposite games. And it's like you could tell somebody just watch those two games to describe Pirates baseball, and it would make perfect sense to them. Yeah. But shout out to our boy Jeff Hartlieb securing his first major league W on Tuesday night. He became the 6,909th pitcher in MLB history to secure a victory, nice. Which is crazy to think about. Because baseball's been around forever, so for it to just be that low, pretty insane. But you think about it, guys like Roger Clemens have over 500. So, but anyway, big shout out to Jeff. He was super pumped about it, and I texted him and said that he owed Reynolds a steak for throwing that guy out, and then he put his Instagram caption on the picture about owing him a steak.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any credit for that, Jeff. But I know that in the back of your mind, that's why you put that as the caption, is because of my text. So shout out to him. With baseball coming back, we've seen a little bit of an outbreak, as I mentioned earlier, with the Marlins. With MLB not being in a bubble, they were obviously more at risk for something like this to happen. Somebody else tested positive the day. That brings the total to 18 players and staff, such like that. Right now it's just one team, but again, this could continue to happen. The MLB feels comfortable about their protocols and everything. Do they really? I mean, they're going to say that regardless. This is not good. It's a reason that I'm not so sure that the MLB will be able to sustain like I am with the NHL and the NBA. It's also affected the Phillies. It's affected the Yankees because they were supposed to play the Phillies. And who was it that was going to play the Marlins that day? It's already affected 4 teams essentially, just by one team having this outbreak. And now the Phillies had a couple people that weren't players test positive today. So now they were all sent home from the facility. It's just, it's ridiculous. The fact that they're even trying to have this season, not to say I don't love it, because I'm glad that we're watching baseball and stuff right now, but I have to wonder how long can they actually be doing this for?
Yeah, I don't think, and now I could be wrong, I just don't think baseball would work that well in a bubble, even though that would be the ideal world. I'm just thinking about the game length and like how long games take to play. Like if you're having multiple games a day, how many realistically are you fitting in if you have like some like hub cities, or are you just saying bubbles in their own cities?
I'm saying is in like picking states, not necessarily, having to all play at the exact same fields and stuff like that, but containing them in states so they weren't traveling to all these different states as road teams.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought you meant like just having like 2 hubs.
So, for example, I know that neither one of these states are doing well with the virus, but everybody's spring training sites are in both Florida and Arizona. That's where everybody's spring training sites are. So if you were to, it'd be a little bit tougher because of where those states are right now, but those would ideally be where you would want them to go, and just have their home games at their spring training sites. Now, I don't know if that was something they talked about and the players just weren't for it. Again, I can understand why they wouldn't be. But that's why I just feel like the bubbles or using hub cities, or, in this case, states, that was really the only way that I felt like this was a feasible thing to do, is bring baseball back. Otherwise, an outbreak was bound to happen. And, of course, it's a team that plays in Florida. We've seen the way Florida has been with the pandemic and everything like that. So,
and it was like 2 days into the season.
Yeah, it didn't take very long. And, you just wonder, What was going on there? Did these guys know that they were sick? I mean, for example, the Pirates said that they feel like Gregory Polanco saved their season because he started to like feel some type of symptoms and immediately just left. He got away from everybody else. And apparently that wasn't happening with these guys. So,
I mean, maybe they didn't feel symptoms, or at least most of them. Like we said before, there's a lot of people haven't done that.
yeah, but like 18 different people.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, so the Pirates themselves 2-4. But you look at if you think about who you expect to be carrying the offense and you look at what their numbers are, you would think that they didn't have a win yet. They're lucky that they have guys like Colin Moran and Phillip Evans off to the hot starts that they are. Because Josh Bell's not hitting right now. Brian Reynolds isn't hitting right now. Kevin Newman's not hitting right now. I know Adam Frazier hit a 2-run homer in that game that they came back in 1-8-6 on Tuesday night. But Adam Frazier's not really hitting right now. And that's, who you're counting on, especially with the fact that Polanco missed his first couple games and also the exhibition games leading up to. So he's still trying to, get back up to speed and get his back going. So yeah, right now the offense has been absolutely terrible. The bullpen hasn't really been as bad as I thought that they would be. You just really
still not good though.
Yeah, you look at like Rich Rod late in the first game, and then like Michael Feliz's meltdown. Kyle Crick hasn't been good, but really like guys that you wouldn't necessarily have expected like big contributions from, like a JT Brubaker coming in and pitching the way that he did in relief. Nick Burdi to me is the guy out of the bullpen that's going to be the guy at least as far as as long as Keone Kell is not with the team.
He's been the most consistent.
The closer, yeah. 4 strikeouts and just 2 innings of work. And we knew that he had the stuff. It's just been a matter of actually staying healthy and getting out there. It's crazy to think that he's still like under the Rule 5 restrictions right now. We have to have him on the roster or he would go back to the Phillies organization. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I think that he's a stud and I think that he's the staple of the bullpen. Unbiased, I was very curious as to what Jeff would do under a new pitching coach. We know he had his fair share of struggles last year, obviously pitching with a broken foot since like the start of the season as well. But, we know he's got nasty stuff and I'm excited to see what he can do with a new pitching coach. I hope that he's up here to stay. Once I mentioned Brubaker, he's got really good stuff as well. We saw a glimpse of that in that series against St. Louis. Dovidas hasn't looked that bad. That's another guy who's been given his fair share of opportunity. He's actually the longest tenured member of the Pirates now, which is crazy.
Longer than Polanco.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was brought into the organization, I'm pretty sure they said during the game yesterday, like 11 years ago out of Lithuania.
Jeez.
Yeah. So he's been with the organization for a long time.
When did he come up? Like 2014 or 15?
I really don't know.
I don't know either.
Polanco actually debuted with the Pirates in 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Best 66 in Pittsburgh history.
Yeah.
He debuted in 17. Holy crap.
Sheesh.
Wait, so hold on. What the? He came over 11 years ago from Lithuania. So he was 16 when he came over.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because I was like thinking like if it was 11 years ago, I looked in his debut, he was 24. I'm like, if he came 11 years ago, he must have been really young. Yeah, he was 16. That's nuts.
Jacob Stallings has been what I thought that he would be. I know a lot of people are skeptical on him. I think that he's capable of being a starting catcher. That position, the catcher position itself, is just the defense is where you add value, especially now with all the advanced stuff and pitch framing. He throws out runners. He's very good at what he does behind the plate. Really, whatever he brings with the offense is going to be whatever. You're batting.
Just a bonus.
Yeah, you're batting him like 7th or 8th in the lineup anyway, so it's whatever. But, I think that he's definitely like a top half of the league catcher just because of his defense. We had our backup catcher is John Ryan Murphy due to the injury to Luke Maile. He actually hasn't looked that bad, especially at the plate. He has a couple of hits, which I was not expecting. That's more than an Eric Gonzalez can say right now. But I don't know. Yeah, this team is 2-4 is probably where I thought they would be after 6 games. And I'm just surprised that they are 2-4 though, considering the contributions or lack of from guys like Josh Bell, Brian Reynolds, Kevin Newman, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's been definitely a weird season, but kind of played out where we thought it would. Like where the bullpen underwhelming, offense not that great. Starting pitching hasn't been terrible.
Derek Holland was very good in his
yeah.
first.
But I mean, even games that like the game that Trevor Williams started, the Pirates ended up losing like 9-1, but he only gave up 3 runs.
Yeah.
It's just the Pirates have no offense to help back him up. And then they got to the bullpen and it just imploded.
And then yesterday, Musgrove gives up 3, 2 separate home runs, but the Pirates had 1 hit, and it came in the first inning. So 0 run support.
Also, how have you felt about having the DH in the NL?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't somebody that was like, harping on it either way. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely noticeable, not having the pitcher come up. The difference is, with us, though, we don't have 9 true hitters anyway. When it gets to the bottom of the lineup, you might as well have your.
We basically have another pitcher.
Yeah.
Like whenever Steven Brault was pitching, we should have had him hit.
True.
He's at least someone that can hit more than Eric Gonzalez can say right now.
Also, I gave a shout out to Jeff on his first win. I also want to give a shout out to Chad Kuhl on his return to the mound, which is
he
awesome.
Looked good.
Yeah, like moments like that, they're the moments that I really wish that we were. Not to say that like PNC's ever going to have a ton of fans there, and until they are like really good again and some faith is restored in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if that would have been like a cool thing to have fans in the stadium for.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we would have definitely been there. Like,
and I was texting Jeff, and like he was like, "Dude, like I can't imagine if fans were there, like what it would have felt like for me, especially like when Reynolds threw the guy out at home."
Mm-hmm.
Like, so other than that, Miles Michaelis out for the season. He's the Cardinals pitcher, so that's how it affects us. The Braves DFA'd Mike Fultonevich, which was, I mean, he's been on the decline for a little bit. His fastball's not even hitting 91 now, so I would assume, there's an injury there. Curious to see if another team does take a flyer on him or if he's going to have to end up, getting some type of surgery. Maybe he just sits out the rest of the season. And then Verlander and Kluber both injured as well. Kluber's going to miss a minimum of 4 weeks. Verlander, it's kind of up in the air with because there were reports that he was out for the season, and he's disputing that. He's getting a second opinion about something. So I don't want to like jump the gun here and say that we're looking at like Tommy John because it's like forearm tightness. That's typically the way it starts, though. I mean, if we've seen plenty of cases with Tommy John where it starts out as forearm tightness, they go on the 10-day IL, and then all of a sudden they're getting Tommy John surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, wish the best for both those guys. I hope that's not the case.
And it's kind of odd, Kluber being out 4 weeks. It's like half the season.
Yeah.
Because they're only like 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I just got an update from the score. 7-inning doubleheaders have been approved beginning August 1st.
August 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the
extra inning rules will apply in this doubleheaders as well.
Okay. It's just funny how they're doing this this entire season on the fly. Like 4 hours before first pitch. Oh, we're going to go from 10 to 16 playoff teams. Like, okay. Yeah. And now this. So the big news in the MLB, I would say right now, is the Joe Kelly suspension. So we know everything that happened with the Astros, and it was the Dodgers that they played in that World Series. And so they're playing each other the other night. Joe Kelly throws behind Bregman and then throws what would have hit Correa, but he ducked and it didn't hit him. Then he strikes him out and mouths something to him. They start yapping back and forth. Joe Kelly also, when he threw behind Bregman, he yawned. And then when he's walking off after striking out Correa, they say something to each other and he makes a pouty face at him, which is obviously, that's going around on the internet and everything.
Yeah.
And then he gets suspended 8 games, which would equate to like 22 games in a 162-game season. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. For one, what I'll say is a lot of people, are like praising Joe Kelly and everything like that, and I get it. Listen, a lot of other guys are going to be throwing at Astros this year. I would probably pick a better guy to make your like folk hero than a guy that pitched for the Cardinals when they had their scheme going on against where they were like hacking the Astros system. Not to say that had anything to do with him, but he just happened to be on the team back then. And was also on the Red Sox when they won a World Series when they were supposedly doing something very similar.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I don't know. And I'm never against throwing at guys. Throwing behind Bregman, that's, kind of different because he was never going to hit him. If Correa doesn't duck, he would have hit him in the head, though.
Mm-hmm. Here's what I'll say. I think you're right. Anyone can throw at these guys, but no one is going to do it the way that he did it, like giving them the attitude back. Because it kind of reminded me of like AJ Burnett's sit the F down, like that sort of attitude. I don't see many other pitchers in the league basically putting on the show that he did, like walking back to the dugout, which is why I think so many people are praising him for it. Because I mean, not only did he throw at them, but like he just like let them know. And I know he was on those teams, but I think that's why so many people are like revolving around him because of the attitude that he had around it.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, they're looking at one action, and I can totally get that, but they're pretty much putting aside, everything else with Joe Kelly and just looking at what he did that night. Because again, is another guy gonna, act that same way? Because like I said, it's gonna happen. Guys are going to be throwing behind the Astros.
Oh, I think they should. I mean, I've said multiple times, I never condone throwing at players. I think they should be hit every series. I mean,
I see.
Not that I think they should be hit. I expect them to be hit every series.
Yeah, I expect them to. For me personally, the way I look at it, and I never played a ton of organized baseball or anything like that. You're putting free runners on for what reason? Like, is that really like? Are you really getting revenge that way? But this all goes back to what I had this conversation with Sarge and listener of the show Tyler Hurley. Shout out to Tyler. The reason that I feel like this is so magnified is because the MLB did such a poor job of policing themselves and handing out punishment for this, that the players decided to take it into their own hands. Had the MLB decided to punish the players to some degree, and I said before, I'm not sure where you go with this because how many players do act differently if they're put in the same situation? I don't know how high up that this like cheating scheme was coming down, but if you're a player and one of your bosses tells you to do something, what are you really supposed to do in that situation? Just go against it? I mean, that's why I feel like the players should have had something done to them and they didn't, which is why guys are policing it. But, the extent's a different topic because, when you talk like a year suspension, that would have been fine if we're talking about like a 60-game season. Obviously, we wouldn't have known about it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But, the fact that those guys didn't face any punishment is why that this is being so magnified now. And then to punish the guy, which again, I said Joe Kelly, I would have given him 2 games. I would have given Correa 1. That would have been my suspensions from that game. To give him 8 games, which I said again equates to 22 for a 162 game season, is just ridiculous because you're making it once again look even worse on the Astros because they're like everybody else is looking at like them as the MLB's baby right now. Like they're just being protected by the MLB, and for what reason? They're the ones that caused all this.
Well, yeah, I was talking about it with someone at work today that Joe Kelly's getting suspended longer than any Astros player has gotten suspended because of it. Which, no matter how you feel about how Joe Kelly did, that's stupid. I mean, the fact that no one on the Astros got punished is so annoying. But you're right; it just makes the MLB look worse. It's kind of like to relate it to the NHL. It's kind of like whenever someone like gets like hit in the head or something like that. Like they just don't take action, or either they don't suspend a guy, they only fine him, or they suspend him for like 1 or 2 games, or it should be like 5, 6 or more. And it's kind of like they just don't know how to police it properly, and that's what the MLB looks like with this Astros situation. They just look like a fool compared to everybody else.
And the thing is too, like, I don't want to say that they should be doing the Astros any favors because they absolutely shouldn't be. but it's not really doing them any favors either by making them look like this. It's just making them look weaker and weaker. Like I said, once again, you're making them look like they're your baby. Like, why are you so protective of these guys when they're the ones that caused all this? It's very dumb, and at this point, it's just like past the point of no return because guys are going to face even more severe punishment. The next guy that goes and does something like Joe Kelly did, because now there's that precedent. Now we'll see what happens with his appeal, but the fact that somebody's done it already and got suspended 8 games, I think that sets up the next guy's punishment to do it, and it's going to happen. I guarantee somebody does it.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I think what he did is a lot more extreme than just hitting him.
Yeah, but I'm saying, the next guy to come up, I don't even think that he has to, that the next guy's going to have to hit him. If it looks like he's throwing at them, there's already going to be like a precedent there because the MLB came out and said they're not going to condone guys throwing at the Astros, and there's going to be harsh penalties for doing so.
Well, if that's the case, then why isn't every other pitcher that's hit them so far?
They have to make it. I mean, it has to look like it was on purpose.
Yeah.
So.
But I feel like it would be like, as an umpire, I'd feel weird because you have to police a game basically. But if I was an umpire, I'd be like, yeah, I don't really care if these guys get hit. I'll be honest. Like I understand why people want to hit them.
Yeah. Again, to me, what it comes down to is I'm never of the mindset of playing beanball and hitting guys. All it's really doing is putting free runners on base, and people talk about sending a message or whatever like that. Really the best message you can send is beat them, and the Dodgers swept them. So that to me, and Altuve, Bregman, and I don't know how much of a role George Springer had in the whole thing that was going on. George Springer's like the one player on that team I still like. I love George Springer, but they were hitless combined in that series as well. So that to me speaks more volumes than you going out there and plunking a bunch of guys for revenge.
Well, did you see the broadcast last night from the Dodgers? They said there's someone when Altuve struck out. He's like, he must have guessed wrong, and then the color analyst is like, yeah, well, guessing is harder than knowing.
Yeah, it was Oral Hershiser, former pitcher.
Yeah, like it's funny. Like everybody hates them for it.
I mean, think about even got throwback guys like that, even more so probably because of the baseball tradition and everything like that. It's just, this is once again the most complex cheating scheme that we've seen in our lifetimes, and Joe Kelly got suspended 8 games longer than anybody from that team did.
Yep, doesn't make sense.
Okay, so unless you have anything else.
Nope, just trust the bucket process. That's it.
Yeah. Once again, shout out to Jeff on his first major league W. If I'm the Pirates, I'm looking at bringing up Jared Oliva right now.
Yeah, I saw you tweeted that today.
They're not getting much out of the outfield.
Is he in Altoona?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's at the satellite camp or whatever. So
yeah,
he can be called up whenever.
Why not?
They're not getting much from Jared Dyson or Heredia, so I think that they should look into that. But
dude, the one night whenever literally all of Twitter was saying pitch hit for Dyson, the whole timeline, all at once. Didn't do it though.
Nope. So we will be back with an interview with former Pirate Garrett Jones on Saturday.
At 5:00.
Yeah.
All right.
5:00 p.m. Eastern. There wasn't a fantasy show this week. We're going to come back strong next week with a mock draft. We were going to get a bunch of people in and do a live mock draft in a Zoom room, streaming it on YouTube just like this for you guys. It'll be different to see, everybody's strategies, how they go about drafting. As always, if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Our good friend Sarge worked very hard on the videos that we put up on here as well. We made a TikTok. Well, I made a TikTok for the podcast. Just to put up short clips that happen, whether it be on the show or a highlight video that our video girl Kelly does. Shout out to her. Awesome stuff. So follow us on there, Around the 412. Follow us on Twitter, Around the 412. Follow us on Instagram, Around the 412. Like I said, subscribe on here, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live or we post a new video. If you're listening back, also do the exact same thing. Keats Barbershop. I'll tell you about them one last time. They're located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. And every Tuesday, he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, Keats Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Might very shortly here be Best in the Valley. We'll find out about that. And
Get the
past that,
shirts.
again, yeah, he's coming out with new shirts. We got shirts you can go check out on Spreadshirt and Designed by Human. We've added a couple recently, and we got at least one more coming very shortly. But other than that, it's been Smitty and Tyler, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.